Yo, and what is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. Chris Jericho extends an invitation for Jon Moxley to join the Inner Circle. We had a Texas-style street fight to close out a very, very good episode of AEW Dynamite. A big improvement from last week's show, and is one of the better shows that we've actually seen. And there's not really too much to bring the hammer down on, but there is always something, and we are going to talk about it all. The good, the bad, and everything in between. Right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare, and you are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's AEW Dynamite review. Let's do it.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
First and foremost, I want to apologize for how late this review is going up. Fact of the matter is, Thursday, when I usually do my AEW stuff, was spent battling the WWE as they were so offended, and I hurt the big giant wrestling company's tiny baby feelings. And they had my Raw review completely removed from YouTube without any notification or any sign of a problem, citing copyright infringement, which is a load of bullshit because there was not 1 second of any WWE content on that. So we did some things, we reposted it, and the WWE Raw review that they do not want you to see is live on Sledgehammer TV right now. So when you are done with me here, you can go check it out and see firsthand what the hell did I do so wrong. I don't understand, but we are going to continue moving on, bringing the hammer down on everything in professional wrestling, even AEW at times. And this was a very entertaining show. It was a much more tightly structured show. They did a great job building towards next week, big Chris Jericho loaded episode of Dynamite. It's going to be a much better viewing experience for you as opposed to last week's, which was just way too much going on within that 2-hour period. This week was much more compact, it was much more focused, and they had a clear vision, and you can see where they were going, and it was a decent episode from start to finish. Well, at the beginning of this thing, when Jon Moxley came out and squashed Alex Reynolds, my immediate reaction was, this is kind of bullshit. This is not the best use of Jon Moxley. However, this segment didn't end up serving a dual purpose. While initially it just serves to show you guys how much of a badass Jon Moxley is, and how quickly and how unhinged he is, and how quickly he can dispose of his opponents, it didn't really do much for him here, but it was showing you that he's a badass. And consequently, by Alex Reynolds being the person to suffer this squash match, being labeled a jobber, even by the announce team, and by, the Dark Order segment that would follow, it does play into that. The Alex Reynolds situation and losing the way he did to Jon Moxley at the beginning of this show makes it a little bit more intriguing when we see the contemplation by Alex Reynolds later on to see whether or not maybe he wants to join the Dark Order, or he's being confused and maybe pulled towards the Dark Order in the Dark Order segment later on in the night. So it was okay when all was said and done, but when it first happened, I was like, what the hell is going on? But they did immediately pick up steam with the Chris Jericho promo as he and the Inner Circle approached the ring and went to Moxley. And while immediately you assume this is going to be a beatdown of sorts, and just for Jericho to soften him up and try to get him off track for his quest for the AEW Championship, this was very unexpected, as Chris Jericho offers him a spot inside the Inner Circle. And it was great the way they came about things, and how Jericho brought up the past that they had in the WWE, and how he used to come to Chris Jericho for advice, and how he was maybe somewhat of a mentor to Dean Ambrose at the time, without actually calling him Dean Ambrose, of course. But it was an interesting way to go about it, and you immediately are feeling like Moxley ain't going to go for this. He's going to hit Jericho with something, and chaos is going to ensue. But Moxley started to contemplate it. Everything ended very peacefully, and it leaves us in an awkward position. Now, imagine this for 1 second. One of the best things I think AEW could do right now is have Jon Moxley join the Inner Circle. And let me tell you why before you call me an absolute crazy guy. Think about this. What if he joins the Inner Circle, and over the course of the first few weeks, everything looks copacetic and he's doing Jericho's bidding and whatnot. But slowly he starts to get in the ear of the other members of the Inner Circle, making them all question each other's loyalty, making them question Le Champion, even getting Le Champion to question Jake Hager's intentions at points. It would be very intriguing, and all the while nobody is really realizing that Moxley is the one stirring the pot except for us. And soon enough they start to confront each other. Moxley is almost successful at taking down the Inner Circle from within, but he reveals himself to be the conspirator. He hits the paradigm shift on Jericho, and it ensues from there. You could do so much with that, because now Moxley remains the most over babyface, and he gets even bigger in the process. We haven't seen this come join the New World Order type storyline in quite some time. Factions nowadays don't really do that. But I thought this was an excellent idea that popped into my head. If he joins right now, it would be shocking. Nobody would believe it because nobody expects him to do so. But over the course of time, he starts to deteriorate the group until they figure it out. Then he's out of the group. And then you could even lead to bringing in Brody Lee, formerly known as Luke Harper in the WWE. Maybe he comes in as Chris Jericho's newest member, brought in specifically to battle Jon Moxley before he gets his shot at the championship. After that, you have Chris Jericho still the champion. Moxley maybe has to go through the entire Inner Circle, leading to the debut of Luke Harper, and then leading him on his quest to Jericho by the time you get to a big pay-per-view. That would be a very interesting way to go about it. I don't think that's the case here. It would be very similar to what they kind of did with Diamond Dallas Page back in the 90s with the New World Order, and I think it would be great to see something like that. I don't think that's the way they're going to go with it. Obviously, Moxley's not going to accept this invitation. He might tease it for a couple of weeks, but eventually he's going to turn his true colors to the world and probably start to take on the Inner Circle head on instead of doing it from within, which I think would be a much more interesting way to go about it. This whole situation was intriguing nonetheless, and the fact that we're talking about it in a positive way means that AEW kicked off in a very, very good manner, and we were very happy with this. And I couldn't stop my brain from thinking of possibilities and things that they could possibly do down the line if they are going to go forward and use the Inner Circle very similar to the Bullet Club way of things or the NWO style of things, where you're going to try to just keep gaining numbers and take over the show one member at a time so that the champion is protected from some of his biggest threats and for whatever varied number of reasons you can come up with. But this was very, very interesting, and I was into it. Good stuff here. I loved the presentation of the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. I think the music was great. I think their look is great. The way they came out in their entrance was very good. I didn't expect all of the pyro, but apparently they are going to be a big deal, and I could understand why after we seen the match that we seen here. But there are a few criticisms of this match that I would be remiss if I did not come out here and tell you, which is, first of all, Cody Rhodes' choice and tag team partner being QT Marshall. I don't know what prompted this. Maybe there was something online somewhere that I was, unable to see or didn't get to see yet, but I don't understand why he would choose QT Marshall over half of the rest of the roster. At the end of the day, during this match, QT Marshall would prove to be an excellent addition to this matchup. He definitely got himself over here, but he ended up leading to Cody Rhodes losing this match altogether. As far as the finish of this matchup, I wasn't a big fan of the fact that the Bunny had something to do with the way the Butcher and the Blade won their very first official tag team matchup. I think they could have done it on their own, especially since Cody Rhodes was kind of a non-issue in the finish and QT Marshall was the one and the reason for everything going down. And Cody Rhodes being despondent on the outside of the ring following this would lead to Darby Allin coming out, which was an interesting turn of events. Darby Allin helping him up. And then on social media, if you follow Darby Allin like I do, you would have seen him say, I will be more than happy to be Cody Rhodes' tag team partner going forward, which I think would be great in this battle with the Butcher and the Blade. But he wants a rematch with Cody as a reward for doing so, and I'd be down for that as well. This is the first time we've seen them cross paths since their amazing matchup that they had where Darby Allin nearly killed himself doing some crazy shit. And I think it's an interesting way to move forward. Still kind of, upset about the way they finished off their first matchup, the Butcher and the Blade. It might be detrimental, but it might not really be all that big of a deal when all is said and done. I'm sure they're going to get plenty of clean wins, but I think in your debut match you would want to win clean and show the world that you're no joke and that you're not relying on the help of your manager. But we'll see where they go with it. At the end of the day, another quality segment, and it was very entertaining. I had nothing bad really to say about it aside from the two things I pointed out to you. MJF would then be the following segment. Immediately following Cody Rhodes, I guess, exiting. These guys didn't cross paths in the back somehow. I don't know. But we'll forgive that because MJF cut a fantastic promo on Cody Rhodes. He zeroed in on the lisp, got very personal. He said he agreed to face Cody Rhodes, but he has a few stipulations in mind, and he's not going to tell the stipulations to Honkyville, USA. But on the Jacksonville episode, which takes place January 1st, this promo was fantastic. It is just everything that MJF is about. He's not afraid to say anything to get the heat, and he's the best heel going today, and I absolutely love every time he's on the screen, except when they have him in an inset promo where you can't hear a word he freaking says. When he was running down QT Marshall earlier in an inset promo, the audio issues were blaring right there. You couldn't hear a word the guy said, and that's a sin when you got MJF saying something and I can't hear what he's saying. That's detrimental to the show for sure. We had that Dark Order promo where they were talking to Alex Reynolds through his hotel television room, urging him to stop being a jobber and to join the Dark Order, which is what I was mentioning to you guys at the beginning of the show. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing the way I was trying to explain it to you guys before, but this was interesting, man. And while I have my personal angst towards it, because this was kind of my idea for what I was going to do when I got to my managerial position. It is what it is, and I think it's fantastic. This is everything I asked them for. I need to know more about the Dark Order. I need them to have some sort of a story behind it, not just watching two guys out there with absolutely nothing going on. But this definitely brings my interest up, and I really enjoyed this, and this is another case of, are we going to continue to see the Dark Order reaching out to some of the lower level talent to try to elevate them and save them and things like that? It's intriguing stuff, and I'm into it. Big Swole defeats Emi Sakura, and Big Swole is fantastic. She's got a tremendous energy. She's got a great charisma about her. The crowd was all over it. The problem with this matchup comes with Emi Sakura. Personally, because I'm getting a little tired of seeing one or two Joshi wrestlers on every single episode of Dynamite. I am definitely not into this Freddie Mercury thing that she's bringing into it. It's not a personal thing, and it's not like I feel like she's disrespecting him or anything. It's a little dated. It doesn't seem relevant, and it's just kind of cringy. It's kind of cringy. And their little segment they had, their little dance-off in the middle, I maybe could have forgiven it if they had nothing to do with like the whole Freddie Mercury get up and the mic stand and the whole thing. I don't know. That was a little much. The match went a little long. And as a result of that, you could see it was getting a little bit sloppy. Maybe the girls were getting a little tired. They were going very hard, and this was a very entertaining matchup. Big Swole got over big time in this matchup, but there, like I said, could have been a little bit more constraints on it. If they took a little bit away, gave a little bit of time to something else instead of so much time to this, maybe would have been more beneficial in this scenario. But this was an entertaining segment before all was said and done. There was a lot of good things about it, but like I said, it went too long and started to get a little wonky right as we got towards the end. We had a great tag team matchup come at us in the form of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page as they went on and defeated Kip Sabian, who came out with Penelope Ford, and Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard. Leading up to this, the whole story going in here is Tully Blanchard and Spears are looking to try out prospective partners for a future tag team for Shawn Spears, and I think this is an excellent idea, especially given that the manager in question is Tully Blanchard, one half of one of the greatest tag teams ever to step foot on planet Earth, one of the most technically sound and amazing tag teams to ever come to us in the history of professional wrestling, and that is Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Their history with the Horsemen needs not be repeated. It is legendary, and what a better teacher could you have to show you the ins and outs of tag team wrestling than Tully Blanchard. Shawn Spears right now is getting lost in a sea of singles competitors that is much too large. There are a lot of fish in that pond, and I think a great way to get a good push for Shawn Spears would be to get him in a tag team, give him a capable partner, and really give them a push, especially with Tully as the manager leading the charge, getting them to the top, and possibly even giving them a run with the championships. You need another great heel tag team that could really get over. I think it's a fantastic way to use Spears, and because he seems kind of boring and a little bit like I don't care, even though he has Tully as his manager. But adding this other component would definitely elevate things to a great, great level. Kip Sabian, I think, is a great choice. But the way this thing all ended up, I'm pretty sure Kip Sabian's not going to want to join up, as Shawn Spears would end up leaving him hanging out high and dry, as he ended up being alone against Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, a team that I have told you guys I am really into. I think for the same reason that Shawn Spears should have a tag team partner, the best way for people to become more familiar and get Kenny Omega and Hangman Page over in a dual process is by putting them in this tag team. Make it a more regular thing. We have seen it constantly over and over and over again, and I am a big fan of it. I think they look great together. I think they wrestle well together. It's a great way to expose them to a lot of people that are watching for the first time and don't know what's up with these guys and why they're so popular and why people love them so much. A great way to go forward with that is to put them in a tag team, and people, you have to understand that when they break up later on, which is an inevitability, it makes them both bigger stars, and somebody will be a heel, somebody will be a face, and we will go on another great story, continuing to get both of these guys over in the process, which is what some of the magic is about tag team wrestling when it's done right. And I think this is a great way to use Omega and Page. It makes me more interested in them than when I'm watching them go one-on-one with anybody else. It definitely brings some great elements in, and I enjoyed it. There was a couple of repetitive moments, of course, and the one biggest criticism I could have is Joey Janela's involvement of this thing, which brought Shawn Spears out of it, was shocking, yes. And the way he had Tully Blanchard suddenly kidnapped and tied up to a chair and strapped with his little ski goggles on, it was sadistic and it was weird and it was like, what the hell just happened? But my only caveat with this is the lights out thing. AEW does the lights out so much that you never know what it's going to be when the lights go back on. And while that maybe adds an element of surprise, you might say, to me, that's a gimmick and that's a thing that should be specific to one character. The way that WWE used to do it was like it was only The Undertaker's thing. And now it's kind of only The Fiend and Bray Wyatt's thing. Like, you can't lights out everybody. We've seen the lights out for Cody Rhodes a couple of times. We've seen the lights out for Brandy Rhodes. We've seen the lights out for many different people. And it just should be specific to one particular act. I think it's being a little bit overdone, so the effect is not much. Even though when the lights went on, we had Tully Blanchard captive and Joey Janela standing over him like a crazed maniac, making his best Joker face. It was pretty intriguing, and it was an interesting development that I didn't really see coming. And obviously, Spears and Janela will be on a collision course, as he just disrespected his manager in one of the craziest ways possible. It'll be an interesting way to go forward. Brandy Rhodes. Brandy Rhodes looked amazing. She always looks really, really good. Her outfits are always on point. Her makeup is on point. She's a beautiful, beautiful lady. She's also a very nice woman. She's a philanthropist. She's got a big heart. She's an animal lover. So it makes it very hard for me to see her in this dominatrix type of, cult leader sort of thing. What happened to Brandy Rhodes to make her snap and all of a sudden think like she's the queen of something? Like, I don't understand the point of any of this. She's doing this straight edge society type thing. We got people with bald heads sitting in a room. She's talking about what's going to be different with AEW if Brandy Rhodes wasn't around. And then she's got this bald guy sitting in a chair. And from behind, it kind of looked like Kane sitting there, but we know it's not going to be Mayor Kane sitting there. And then when he kind of turned, from the profile, I'm calling it right now. I'm saying that was Vampiro. I remember seeing Vampiro in Lucha Underground. He's got the bald head. The guy looked a little bit older, and it would be kind of fitting for the Nightmare Collective to have a vampire on board. She's got Awesome Kong, but I don't really understand where we're going with this, and there are so many concurrent dark angles happening right now that it's sort of unnecessary. It just doesn't seem natural for her. She looks like a high school actress, like trying to be cool or trying to play the bad girl, when you know so much about her that it's just not coming off maybe the way it should. It's just not for me. It's not for me. While I enjoyed seeing her in all her beautifulness, I did not really understand this segment, and by the time it was over, didn't really care. And all I really want to know is who the bald guy was now. And that's it. And I gave you my prediction. I'm calling it right now. I think it was Vampiro. Other than that, it might be some new guy that we are unaware of. But this wasn't worth time for me. Chris Jericho came out and kicked Tony Schiavone and Excalibur off of the announce team, and he sat there with JR and his heavy Jake Hager, and they were going to be the commentary for the next matchup, which would be the Luchasaurus versus Sammy Guevara. This whole entire segment was everything it needed to be. Jericho, fantastic on the mic. It was great hearing him as a commentator. He was making me laugh on multiple occasions. This was very, very good. Luchasaurus getting the win here with Sammy Guevara looking great in the process. It didn't go too long. It was short and sweet, and it wasn't muddled with interferences by the Inner Circle. In fact, the Inner Circle didn't get involved until Sammy Guevara already suffered the pinfall and the match was over. Luchasaurus gets a much needed win to build his momentum back up. This all turned into a brawl whose whole purpose was simply to promote next week's encounter between Jungle Boy and Chris Jericho, who had a great altercation in the ring. Jungle Boy promises to last 10 minutes against Le Champion next week, and it's going to probably be a pretty damn good match from what we've seen tonight. They did a great job at making everybody much more interested moving forward. Everybody played their part perfectly. This was a great, great segment. They announced a new pay-per-view, February 9th. AEW Revolution. Two things I don't like about AEW Revolution. The first thing being that they're going back to Chicago. And not that I feel like they should come to New York so that New York fans could go specifically, but you are nationwide now, worldwide on TNT. Take a chance on yourself, because you'll be surprised how successful you will be if you booked a major pay-per-view in a different major city. Going back home to Chicago almost feels like the safe bet. They know they're going to sell out. It's where they launched the whole thing. That's kind of their hometown. And then they're going to bring this major pay-per-view, bringing a new trademark and everything in for AEW, which is great. But Revolution? Wasn't Revolution the name of NXT's first pay-per-view? Or our Evolution, or whatever? It still said Revolution. That is a name that is so overused in the pay-per-view market. I feel like they could have done a little bit better. They shouldn't have brought back any old pay-per-view from WCW's history or anything. Come up with something new and different. Maybe something themed around some of the matches you got going on. I don't know. Revolution? It's a little bit lackluster. After this, we had the main event of the evening, which was a great tag team matchup featuring two good friends of mine, Proud and Powerful, graduates of the House of Glory. This match was a lot of fun. It was a little crazy at points. I was really big on the Dallas Cowboys helmet spots because I hate the Dallas Cowboys, and when Santana spit on the helmet and threw it out of the ring, I was sitting at home as a native New Yorker going, "Oh yeah!" Sorry, any of my fans from Texas, but hey, you love your team and I love mine, and you hate my team guaranteed just as much as I hate yours. I kind of hate my team as well right now. The Giants are absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. But let's not get off track. We're not talking football. Santana and Ortiz are not dreadful. They are awesome. This whole thing was a lot of fun. The only criticism I have about this is the winner of this matchup becomes number one contender. And I would not have given the win to the Young Bucks in this scenario. I know they've been taking losses left and right, and they've been trying to put over other people. I think this is one of the moments where they should have done that. Because considering the fact that SCU is a babyface tag team, and they are currently the tag team champions, and considering that you want to show the Inner Circle as a dominating force, having them lose this matchup seemed kind of counterproductive. I feel like they should have won this matchup, earned this right to fight the champions, which creates a much better babyface heel dynamic for the match, shows the dominance of the Inner Circle, then maybe even have them win the championships. You got Chris Jericho as Le Champion, and then you have his tag team being the champions of the world right now. I think it would be a better way to go, and then you have SCU fighting and clawing their way back to try to get those titles out of the hands of the Inner Circle now. It tells a better story. The fact that the Young Bucks have eliminated Proud and Powerful from contention here means that we're getting a babyface match between two very popular teams. And what really does it do for the rest of the show? What story are we telling about the Young Bucks? Is this a tale of redemption? Because they haven't been very clear about that. The announced team as a whole has been pretty spotty, even though I love hearing Tony Schiavone and I feel comfortable hearing the tones and voice of Jim Ross. Sometimes the things they say are just absolutely crazy, and the fact that you're watching this matchup and you can't get Nick and Matt Jackson straight is a little bit unforgivable. It's almost something that you might want to bring a poop hammer down on, but we will not do that because we have too much respect for Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. They're not that bad that they deserve that honor. This match ended, like I said, with the Bucks going over. It was wild, it was crazy, it lived up to its street fight rules. It was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't agree with the win, but the Bucks get the win. AEW Dynamite closes out with SCU staring down the Young Bucks with the tag team championships on the line. And that was it. AEW was finished. And I have my little bit of criticisms about it. Another thing that I wanted to mention while we're talking about number one contenders is next week we're going to see Chris Statlander versus Britt Baker in a number one contenders match for the AEW Women's Championship. And I'm sitting here going, but isn't Hikaru Shida still the number one contender? Did she lose that because she lost to Chris Statlander on Dynamite the week before? Like, how many number one contenders can you have? Just something to think about. I thought this was a much better show than last week's show. As we said at the top of the broadcast, it definitely did a good job setting up next week. It's also getting you already excited for things to come next year, as the first show in January is already going to highlight a huge announcement from MJF, as he has now accepted Cody Rhodes' challenge and is going to reveal to us how they are going to end up throwing down. That's a big reason to tune into AEW as we begin 2020. And as we're winding down the year, we got some pretty big matchups to look forward to next week. The Chris Jericho Jungle Boy 10-minute challenge is probably going to be much better than I originally anticipated. And if we are going to dole out a poop hammer for any segment on the night, unfortunately, I have to give it to Brandy Rhodes and this whole Nightmare Collective situation. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't feel natural. And I don't really like it. I feel like it's stifling Kong. The women's division is kind of a mess. We keep seeing the same four women over and over. Why isn't Kong the champion? And why aren't we building baby faces trying to take down Awesome Kong? It worked for TNA. It worked for Gail Kim. Put some of these girls on the map. You think Kong can't do that? But instead she's just standing around collecting hair pieces for Brandy Rhodes, who's now collecting people and shaving heads. Other than that, this was a solid episode. So I hope you AEW fans that have tuned into this haven't brought your hammers down on me. I've had enough dealing with the WWE and their bullshit. I don't need your bullshit as well. I gave this show thumbs up, alright? It's a good show, but there are always issues with every show, and that's what we do here. That's why it's called Everything Wrong With. We are highlighting the things that I think were wrong, no matter how good the show might actually be. So if you already gave it a thumbs down and you're still here listening to me, remove that thumbs down. And the rest of you, hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed anything we had to say here today, which I know most of my sledgeheads definitely did, and most of the time agree with me. It's your time right now to hit me up in the comment section down below. What did you think of AEW Dynamite this week? Do you think they're going in a better direction? Do you like my idea of the way I would book Moxley going forward with this whole thing? It's an interesting scenario, and it definitely makes AEW worth checking out. If they continue to structure the shows this way, it's going to be easy watching. It's going to be really good. So with that in mind, don't forget to share this video with each and every one of your wrestling buddies all over the wrestling world, especially if you want to get them into a little bit more of the inside stuff and maybe what's wrong with their favorite AEW Dynamite show. But most importantly, it is time for you to hit that subscribe button right now. If you had a great time today, become a Sledgehead right now. Hit that subscribe button. Become one of the over 2,000 plus that know when you want your wrestling news and reviews without any bullshit, with fun and with entertainment. This is the place to be. And the WWE can do whatever they want to do, but they will never take me down. And we will be here later on this evening with the SmackDown Live review, Friday night SmackDown review, because they ain't going to silence me. You can't stop the hammer. You can't stop the Sledgeheads. We are just getting started. Don't forget to check out that Raw review that they don't want you to see if you haven't done so already. It's definitely worth the watch. Some really good stuff there. And don't forget to be with us the whole rest of the weekend, as we got TLC coming at us Sunday night, and I'm already ready to bring the hammer down on a whole lot of crap that they've got in store for us on that night. So make sure you are subscribed, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. And don't forget to get your t-shirts. Get your t-shirts right now. Still available at bonfire.com/store/sledgehammer-tv. Your Sledgehammer TV logo t-shirts or your Poop Hammer t-shirts, which will be running on sale throughout the holiday season. But once this year is over, you will not be able to get these two particular designs again. Maybe the logo t-shirt will throw back at you, but the Poop Hammer, once it goes away, it is gone. So get your hands on it while you still can before this year is over. Thank you all so very much for being with me as always. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the Team Thor, the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue, the Snowball. The most important member of the team, as always, is each and every one of you. That is going to do it, and we are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. For now.